Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called NecroVirus and is from the company Boardcraft. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now and at the end of the video, and also down in the description section of the video. That will take you to the page. Find out more information and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, one thing I want to mention right off the bat is that this is a very unique project and not like one that I've ever previewed before, because while you can pledge for the game and get all the different components and things, which I'll get to in a minute, you can also pledge at a lesser level just to get the 3D print files for it. And the reason for that is because there is a ton of plastics and tons of miniatures in this game, and Boardcraft is giving you the opportunity to do it yourself, do it DIY style. Or you can just pledge to get the full product if you don't want to deal with that hassle. It's entirely up to you. So what is NecroVirus? This is a competitive game, although you can theoretically play it cooperatively as well with certain game modes, where you and the other players are survivors in a zombie apocalypse. And in fact, you're going to lead a team, a squad of survivors, and you're going through a 3D cityscape trying to get resources and goods, find more survivors, and meet certain objectives depending on certain mission parameters. And of course, all the while, there are these necrotic zombies that are infected with this virus who are just roaming the city streets trying to kill you and make you one of them. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played, but more importantly, giving you a look at the really cool 3D terrain. Then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of one of the scenarios in NecroVirus from Boardcraft. Now, I do want to point out that there's a couple different options you have in the Kickstarter. You can pledge to get an entire set just like what you see out here, or you can pledge just for the files in order to get to make them yourself on a 3D printer. You have these different options, but I'll just give you a little close-up of some of what you see here just because it is pretty impressive. The setup is going to be different depending on what the scenario is that you have. Now, there's several different scenarios that come with the game. You'll have a sheet that will tell you how to set up the game and what your conditions are and how you win, how you get points, things like that. In this scenario, you're going to start off with the cathedral in the center of the map, and you're going to have all these different tiles, and underneath these row tiles are actually just like base tiles that you're going to build on top of, and then you have all these different buildings that you're going to place out, again, depending on whatever scenario you choose to use. Of course, all these little red peoples are zombies, and every player is going to get a certain amount of zombies that they're going to populate on the map to try and stymie their opponents. Now, their opponents and they themselves are the other colored miniatures, which are going to start off in special starting zones. So this particular area, you're going to start off over in the corners of each of the boards, and every single building has a different name. There's a clinic, a supermarket, a factory, all these different things. Now, these little tokens that are in front of each of the buildings are loadouts. These are like items and resources that you'll be able to gain, like ammunition, fuel, rations, and so on and so forth. And at random intervals in the game, these will actually recharge after players gain them. We'll kind of cover all that stuff. He knows that there's like blocked terrain that only other vehicles can get through, like a turned over fire truck. And down here in the corner of the map, I actually went ahead and put the wrecked airplane tile. So there's all these different types of buildings and things that you can search and go through, and sometimes have to just avoid and just do your best to navigate your way through to avoid the zombie horde. Now, in this particular scenario, each player is going to start off with a random survivor, and each of the survivor miniatures will have their name, just like all the buildings also have the name printed on them as well. So you'll have your survivor card, you'll have your survivor, you'll put them in the applicable spot, and the goal here is to get 3 more survivors in order to have an entire team of 4 survivors, and then get back to the cathedral before 15 turns of the game are up. Now on your little mission sheet here, it will tell you all these different things. It will tell you how many turns, what you're trying to do, if it's a competitive scenario. It'll tell you the buildings that you use and the loadout that each of them has, and so on. And then it will also tell you what your how you get victory points in the game, because this is a competitive mode. So for instance, for every resource that you have, you get a point at the end. For every zombie that you killed, you get a point. Each survivor, or 2 points. For each survivor that you are able to survive with, you're going to get 5 points. And if you're able to reach the cathedral with all 4 team members, you'll get a whopping 10 points. So it's very important to try and meet the mission parameters as much as possible. Just do be aware as we go on that there are several different missions. There's an escort mission, and there's different layouts for the board, different items that you might come across, different objectives, just a lot of different variety to the game. So let me just run you through the sequence of play real quick, and then I'll break it down with some of the more important details. This cannot be an exhaustive run through of all the rules. I just want to give you a taste for what the game is like. So you're going to start off at the beginning of the game. You'll determine randomly who the first player is going to be, and they're going to place this button over on its survivor phase. The survivor phase will tell you just sort of really briefly what the phases of what the parts of this phase are, and then it has the other side, the zombie phase, when you're done with that. So this is just a reminder to let everyone know what phase you're in, and it'll start with the first player. We'll say it's this person over in this corner that gets that button on the player survivor side up. The first thing you're going to do is draw a random event from the event deck, and you're going to resolve it. You have these event cards, and they can be several different things. I'll give you some examples. Sometimes there are generally good things, like Renew. This is what I mentioned earlier, where all players replenish all of the depleted resources at the scrounge locations around the board in front of each of the buildings. But then there's also Consume Rations. All players consume a ration for each of their survivors, and if you can't consume rations, well, then that's bad. Then you have cards that manipulate the zombies. So Zombie Wanders. If any tiles have only zombies in them, disperse all but one to adjacent tiles. Or then just Zombie. A new zombie is added to the board and placed by each player. So zombies continue to spawn as turns go by. Next, you have to check and see if any of your survivors who are previously bitten become a zombie. When one of your survivors gets bitten on a previous turn, you flip it over to their bitten side, and now you have to roll a d20, and I think in almost all cases, if you roll 1 through 10, then that character is going to become a zombie. They're replaced on the board with another one of the zombie miniatures. Once you get done with that, each player in clockwise order is going to resolve their survivor actions. And we're going to get back to that in a minute, because that's really the meat of the game. Next, after everyone has done all their survivor actions, you're going to flip the button over to its zombie phase side and pass that to the player on that person's left. Now, they are considered to be on the button for the zombie phase, and each player, beginning with that player that's on the button and going around clockwise, does all the actions for the zombies that are in their control. And you control all the zombies that are going to affect the person that is on to your right. So you're just effectively taking the game's actions to hinder the person that's the next in clockwise order. And once everyone's done that, it flips again over to its survivor side, goes to the next player, and now you do it all over again. Everyone gets to do all their actions. You go through the zombie phase, event, and things like that. All right, so let's break down the player actions, or survivor actions, as I say, in a little more detail. Every survivor that you have under your control has 4 action points to spend. This is why it's important to get more survivors, because more survivors means that as a whole, your group of survivors is going to have more actions that they are allowed to spend. Now, the first thing you can do is movement, but one thing I want to explain before we go any further is that this game relies on a whole detection element, which is that if you do the wrong things, if you're too loud, if you're if you move into certain areas with zombies, or if events come up that make you detected, then you are going to be seen by zombies, and therefore you are potentially in danger of them attacking you. You're going to take one of these detected markers and put it onto your survivor. That's signifying that you and the other players know that you have been detected by the zombies and you are going to be attacked. It's also possible during the course of the game that you're going to gain access to cool vehicles, and it goes without saying, vehicles are always detected, so zombies are going to know these things are trudging along the board. Vehicles are actually the only thing that can rip through the obstacles that are on some of the tiles as well. Next type of action is an attack. So let's get rid of this vehicle, and I just want to make an attack. You have ranged attacks, which means you're fighting an enemy that's not in your tile, or you have melee attacks, which means that you're fighting someone who is in your tile. So you have, for instance, Faye here has the sniper rifle and the combat axe. Every attack costs me 2 action points. Remember, you only have 4 for each survivor. You roll on the damage table to see if you successfully strike the zombies. There's a few other minor things you can do, but one major thing I wanted to explain was scrounging. So let's say that I'm right here at the beginning. There is a scrounge tile right here. Now, if I'm on that tile, I can take the scrounge action, and not only do I get to take the 2 resources that are jutting out here, which in this case is an ammo box and fuel. I'll take those, and remember those are worth different amount of points at the end of the game. But then I'm also going to have to draw a card from the scrounge deck and do whatever it says. So the supply card says it's scrounge location, you add 3 of each resource in the slots, or cargo drop, add 3 of any resource, because in certain scenarios you'll actually have these big cargo crates out on the board, in which case you can take the scrounge action on those as well. Let's see if I can get a different result here. Oh, look at that, zombies are in the scrounge deck, because of course they're in a zombie apocalypse. These things might happen. So you place 1 zombie knocked down in your scrounge location. Now you have another thing that you need to worry about when all you really wanted to do was search. Look at one more here. You have discovery, scrounge location, draw a survivor card, cargo drop, draw a vehicle card, or add 3 of any resource to if all vehicles have been drawn, remove the cargo drop marker. So this is the different reactions based on what type of scrounging that you're doing. And remember that once all players have finished their actions with all of their survivors, then the zombies get to go. And depending on which survivors are detected, each player is going to move and act with zombies that apply to the character that is to their right, which might involve moving up and potentially attacking and even biting and possibly turning that survivor. So there's a lot of stuff going on in NecroVirus. I can't possibly cover it all, but hopefully you get a good taste for how the game is going to play. You're taking your squad of survivors, however many that might be, going around the city trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, killing as many zombies as possible, getting as many resources as possible, and either staying out of your opponent's way or possibly running them over with a vehicle. Hey, that's kind of life in the zombie apocalypse. That is NecroVirus. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Well, it's difficult to start a conversation about NecroVirus without talking about those components, which are just stunning. I mean, really, when you think about it, there's a lot of different miniatures games out there, but most of them do traditional sculpting for these miniatures, and many of them are very, very high quality, but with the 3D printer, aside from the fact that it becomes very accessible and very easy to do for anyone, what a 3D printer allows you to do that others can't is to make these incredibly intricate 3D sculptures with lots of details on the inside of the buildings, and it's really, really quite amazing what they were able to accomplish with the printers here. And like I said, as part of the project, you can do it yourself if you have access to the printers, or have BoardCraft do it for you. But it's just an amazing thing, and there's so much variety of the different buildings that you have access to and the different tiles. You can adjust the terrain based on, I mean, even within the mission parameters, you can adjust the terrain to however you want it to be together with the other players. If you want to block off roads, make it more difficult to get around certain areas, and you can completely customize your own scenarios, and you can do it all with the pieces that come in this game, and that just gives you a lot of variety and diversity to play around with. Now, on top of that, in this game, you're leading this squad of survivors around, and this is action point based system where you have a ton of different actions that you can theoretically do, but you only have so many limited action points in which to do them. And you have a team of survivors, though, so you can coordinate their efforts in order to meet the objective as best as possible while trying to avoid zombies. But of course, you control the zombies that are going to be going after your compatriot, or your not quite compatriot, over to your side when it comes time for that zombie phase. So there's this sort of flow to the game where everyone's just constantly spreading around the map very quickly, trying to get to the resources, trying to get to these buildings, trying to find other survivors before the other players can, meeting whatever the objectives might be, getting to the cargo crate, just trying to get to a certain spot in the board before it's too late. But then you're all frantically running around trying to avoid zombies or kill them, but then it's going to get to the point where the zombies counter-attack, and you have to deal with that as well, and it's the other players controlling them directly, which adds an interesting level of tension to the game. So there's a lot of stuff here. Obviously, it has that zombie theme, which is still popular to this day, and because of the realistic-looking terrain, it really brings out that zombie theme even more. Definitely the city-type zombie movies and TV shows like The Walking Dead and like Dawn of the Dead, like being trapped in a shopping mall, situations like that. You can really replay a lot of those different types of scenarios. So if you're, oh, and by the way, I will point out too that despite how big and sprawling the game looks, and despite like all the different actions that you can do, the game is still of a moderate weight, meaning that you don't have to be like a super hardcore gamerly gamer in order to be able to learn it, to play it. You'll have, as once you get done with the setup, which is the longest part, then playing the game just runs very, very smoothly. So if you're one of those people who likes the zombie theme, you're enamored by the components that are in this game, if you just like the idea of even doing it yourself, like that appeals to you, and maybe even painting them afterwards, and if you just like the zombie theme of running around a city shooting things until they don't move anymore, you may be interested in NecroVirus, and I would encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out more information than I could possibly tell you here. There's going to be a link at the bottom of your screen now, and then down in the description section of the video, that will take you to the official Kickstarter project page. Find out more information, and hopefully consider backing the project. That is NecroVirus from BoardCraft. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.